Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining Tammy and I. As you can see, I'm still in my race gear. If you've been following me, I've done the Girls on the Run 5K this morning. So excuse me for not being dressed fully yet, but I'll get there today. Um, Thank you all for being here. You could be doing several other things, but you've chosen to be here with us, and we don't take that lightly. We definitely appreciate it. While I feed us through to all of our groups, I'm going to turn it over to Tammy. Good morning, Tammy.
Good morning, Sheka. So proud of you with
Thank
a 5K
you.
under your belt already at 10:30 in the
Yes,
morning.
I know, right? Thank you.
Good. And good morning, everybody. Thank you guys for joining Sheka and I for our Saturday morning PD. We are so super excited to have you with us as always. We want to be sure that as you're coming in, that you do drop in the chat where you're coming from. Good morning, Jocelyn. Thank you for joining us, and let us know who you are and where you're joining us from. We're always so excited to see who we have. Hey, Principal, we heard you this morning, as always, dropping fire to help us with this mid-year space that we're in as administrators and to get us through to the end of the year. Thank you so much for another awesome session this morning. Good morning, Richard, all the way from Las Vegas. Thank you so much for being with us. And for anybody that might be joining us who's new to what Sheka and I do, we are turnaround principals, and Sheka was at a middle school. I am principal at an elementary school. And the transition for us was just something that seemed very isolated. It was quite difficult, so it's been very important for us to be sure that we provide the space so that we can help, if at all possible, to eliminate that from being the reality of other new principals or even principals who've been serving for a while, because it can get lonely. Hi, Carla. Thank you for joining us from Northern California. We're excited to have you with us this morning. At Create and Educate, we offer consulting and literary services. If you are interested in seeing what we do, please go and visit our website at www.createandeducate.solutions, and you can see those things that we offer. We invite you to take a look, especially at our SEL catalog, so that you can see our real resilient. It's our 5 super strengths to a real resilient school that are built on respect, excellence, accountability, leadership, and literacy. Because if you follow us, you'll realize that literacy is foundational for everything that we do at Create and Educate. Good morning, Central. We're glad to see you this morning. Our podcast, The Collaborative, is also something that we're very proud of, and we enjoy sharing with our supporters, and that is something that we do on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. We've gone to a new format, so on the first Tuesdays we are live, and on every other Tuesday we have an author that is there to provide story time for our children and families that join us, because again, literacy is very important to what we do. Good morning, Robert. We're glad that you joined us this morning. That collaborative is at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're ever interested in joining, please feel free to do so, because that's our platform for collaborating. That's a space that we created so that leaders can come together with teachers, with parents. We've even had students on there to engage in some real talk. Finally, we also work with independent authors. And that's something that we're really, really proud of, because Shika and I are very, very passionate about getting materials into schools from these very, very talented authors who many people have never heard of because they are not published by big name companies many times. Sometimes they're self published, or sometimes they work with companies that folks don't readily recognize. But we promote those folks and try to get that work into school so that children have access to texts that are representative of who they are. You, if you haven't already done so, can reserve your copy of our book that's being released very soon. It doesn't have to be lonely at the top. We also have a book, a leadership anthology that we contributed to, that you can purchase when you go to our website. You can follow us on all social media platforms: Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, as well as Spreaker. And we want to just again say thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to get started this morning and so excited to be back with you guys this week. We were not with you all last week because it was Thanksgiving, and we want to say we hope everybody had a very happy Thanksgiving. Hey, Principal Kafele, good morning.
Good
And we
morning.
could just say so while we're here saying good morning, Principal Kafele, we also want to say thank you for your session last Saturday. It was absolutely amazing. We really enjoyed your conversation with Ken Williams. Sheka and I are
Definitely.
so humbled to be a part of this amazing professional learning network that we are blessed to be a part of. We are sandwiched at 10:30 between two education icons. We have Principal Hurt on at 10 on Saturday mornings usually. And then, of course, we're in that mix at 10:30. And then we have the giant of the education world right now coming on at 10:55. So we promise that we get in here and get out so that we can be out of his way. But we also want to just say that on Sunday evenings, we have Principal Josh Tovar and his group who are Unlock the Middle, and they kind of conclude that weekend PD professional learning network for us. And so we're just again very humbled to be a part of such a dynamic group. I think Josh and those are on at 7 p.m. Eastern on Sunday evenings. So please join us, because this work is something that we're doing because we do want to change the trajectory of the way that education is happening right now. Today, we're actually going to be talking about something that is very near and dear to us, and that is belonging. We want to talk about ensuring a culture in your school that allows belonging to exist so that students and staff can thrive, because that truly is what it's all about. James Comer has a very, very famous quote that says, no significant learning occurs without a significant relationship. And as educators, we believe this wholeheartedly. And just being completely transparent. Good morning, Robert. Thank you for joining us. Shika and I just keep it real. And we have to be honest and say that we know that sometimes that gets sidetracked with the ever present stress of test scores and other things that cause us to lose sight sometimes of those things that are most important. And it keeps us from keeping the things that we know should be first in first place. And we know that first things are first, and the first thing we need to think about at all times in a school is the students that are there. So just with that in mind, again, we want to come to you this morning, and we really want to think about this from the perspective of how important relationships are, because they really do matter. Hey, Josh, good morning. Thank you for
Good
joining
morning,
us.
Josh.
So,
Oh, yes, definitely, Tammy. Relationships are very important. And if you have been following, of course, recent headlines, and even Education Week has actually been following the number of school shootings that have taken place, not just this year, but overall. So far, there have been 29 school shootings this year, since August the 1st, with the latest one being, where seven people were injured at the Oxford Michigan high school. And there have been several here in our state in South Carolina. And when you look at a lot of things that are happening, like, things like school shootings or any type of thing like that with violence with children, the first thing that you have to ask yourself is, what happened to that student? What was their underlining thing? And a lot of times, if you are familiar with the ACEs study, a lot of times that goes back to some type of trauma. So just making sure that we are equipped with knowing how to make children feel like they belong to school, that they belong to, that they're a part of something, making sure teachers are not just so, like Tammy talked about, so stressed out and caught up on achievement and test scores that becomes something that's a secondary thing. That has to be the number one thing. And even as administrators with our staff members, we have to know our staff members, and we have to create spaces where we're allowing them those opportunities to be able to get to know their students. And I would always talk to my staff members about how I did that as an educator. Simple things, just showing PowerPoints with pictures, showing the children that you're a real person, that you are somebody's daughter, that you're somebody's mother, somebody's wife, whatever, some of your favorite things, and allowing them to do the same thing. So getting to know them, making sure they know you, makes that culture exist in your classroom where it's a family oriented type of feeling versus something that is just going through the motions, or just school, and not connected to anyone. And that's one of the reasons why we're really excited about our work with the Pear Institute and Dr. Gil Nome at Harvard Medical School, because their work with the 10 Big Bets really ensures that the training that you're receiving is making sure that you are getting to know every child, and making sure that administrators are equipped with what's needed to even help teachers learn how to do that if that help is needed, if it doesn't come naturally. And it doesn't always come naturally to everyone. Some people do need help in that area.
Definitely. And just being sure that we're able to create those spaces in our schools where students feel like they belong and can count on their teachers, or at least some adult in the building, to truly know them and know where they're coming from, appreciate them. And all of that is truly very important to relationship building. As administrators, we just encourage you guys to be sure that you allow your teachers the space and encourage them to get to know their students, because if they establish those strong relationships, although test scores do matter, we're not minimizing how important it is, and how we understand that we're measured sometimes. Like, my school is judged only by the rating that they received, and we're living that truth right now. We still are a part of a school improvement system because of a label that was assigned to us based on test scores a while back. But what we're going to encourage you to do is to help the teachers to understand that we, again, can't make the test scores or school ratings or those things a part of what the bottom line is. But we do want to also say that when you create that culture of belonging, and when you create systems within your school to engage kids and staff, when all of that is a part of what you do, then your academics do start to fall in line. So it all goes together. But we just encourage you to allow that time and space for teachers to really allow the bottom line to be their students, and for you to make sure that the bottom line is the staff, so that they can mimic that in their classrooms as they are going about what it is they have to do to ensure that's happening in each classroom.
Definitely. And one of the things that I like about the ACEs study, because I think sometimes, Tammy, you know, people become desensitized to certain things, and things just start to become like, oh, that's just something that happens, and you kind of brush it over or overlook it. But the ACEs study really gives a lot of great information about how the trauma, which involves violence, abuse, neglect, witnessing violence, substance abuse, mental health, even parental separation, how it adversely affects people in general, not just children, but they have actually had studies where it shows that it causes chronic health problems the larger your ACE score is. And it's only a 10 question questionnaire that would give you a lot of insight into what is happening with your students or what has happened with them. But on the CDC website, where it goes into the information on the study, it also talks about preventative measures, because I think in education sometimes, we get on these bandwagons, and now SEL is a word that we continuously say. But if you really dig down into if people are really doing real SEL work, sometimes that may not be happening. Sometimes it sounds good to say, oh, we're doing this, but what are you actually doing that's impactful or effective or making the children feel like they really belong to your classroom and to your school? And if it's not impactful, then you're wasting time. But the preventative things, SEL is just one of the things that falls under teaching skills, but there are so many other things that are here that involves the family, social norms, making sure that you're making a strong start for children with even things like early childhood home visitations, mentoring and connecting youth to caring adults and activities. Because what I talked about originally, when you're looking at children who have basically been involved in some of these violent offenses at school, and you're asking the question, what happened to them, or even adults that are involved in violence, it usually is something that's traced back to their childhood. So if you don't know your students, if you don't know what's happening with them, you don't know how to help them, you don't know how to address certain things. And because that becomes a sense of normalcy, they may not know how to articulate that, oh, well, this shouldn't be happening, because they don't know. So as much as we can make sure that children are connected to at least one adult in the building, some of these things can be curbed.
And one of the things I think is really important, Jasmine, you're spot on,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes that strong mentoring program provides for that one caring adult. But I love what Zena said. You
Yes.
do have to Maslow before you bloom. I
Mm-hmm.
remember being taught that when I was going through my principal preparation program, because they encourage you to be sure that you pay attention to those things, because if we don't meet those physiological, psychological, just natural needs of our children, then we don't put them in a space where they're even able to focus enough to learn. And one of the things, as Sheka was talking about ACEs, because that is very, very important. I do in my school invest in ACEs training for the staff, because I think that that is very important, and they need to understand what trauma does to the minds of these young children that we're working with. But I heard something, and I think that this kind of speaks to this whole concept for us. TD Jake said that trouble does not last always. And we know there is a song, trouble don't last always.
Mhm.
But he said trauma will stick with you
Mm.
because what you've gone through is real. So we want to be sensitive to that, and we want to be very cognizant that these are very, very important things that we can't just take for granted and we can't overlook in our quest to be schools of excellence, because we want, that's what we want. All of
Mhm.
us want our schools to be excellent, but at the same time we have to keep the focus on what the focus really should be on, and that's our children and our staff.
Exactly. And Robert made a very great point about a lot of times we're asking people to institute SEL who are suffering in silence a lot of times themselves. And that's why it's so important to make sure, as a school leader, that you have a good pulse on your staff as well. You need to know what's going on with their lives as well, and not to the point where you're being nosy or intrusive, but where they feel comfortable coming to you. Several staff members have shared things with me that I've never shared with anybody, because it's not anybody's business.
Right.
And it wasn't that, I'm their counselor or I'm there to give them advice, but I'm just there to understand, as the leader of the school, what is happening with them, why they might need to do a certain thing to take care of whatever, because we are dealing with real people who have real lives and real things going on that affects everybody differently. So,
Absolutely.
you do have to be cognizant of adults go through things too, and everybody is different. Some people wear their weather, some people hold it in, some people project it onto other people, and whatever they're doing, as the leader, you have to have a pulse on that. That's your job, to make
Right.
sure you have a pulse on that, and to make sure that if it is something that's going to impact your children, that you deal with it in a way that it doesn't negatively impact your students or your children, and still be able to help the adult.
I think too, it's really important for us as leaders to have a plan in place, just like we expect teachers to
Hmm.
have a strategy for creating those relationships and making the space comfortable for students to be free and to create those organic experiences and allow children to be authentic. We have to do that same thing for our staff members. And
Hmm.
I'm glad that I have developed and cultivated that kind of relationship with the staff, because I'll have a teacher who might call me in the middle of the night that says they
Hmm.
don't even say necessarily what's going on, but they might just ask, would you please be praying? And I'm
Hmm.
I'm just thankful to have folks who know that that's the kind of principle that you have. I don't mind. And I
Right.
don't have to know, because it doesn't matter what the problem is. If it's a problem, that's what we need to be able to deal with. So I totally agree, Robert. We have to be able to be in a space as administrators to support the people we're asking to provide support to these students who are sometimes traumatized themselves.
Definitely. And Jasmine, you're right. A lot of parents have experienced trauma, and again, we know this is a lot of weight for the leaders, and it's their very big shoes. I've been in the spot, Tammy's in it still as well. And as a district administrator, that's why we have to make sure that we are taking care of our leaders, because this is a lot of weight to carry when you're trying to make sure that the emotional needs of your students, your staff, and the parents now are all met, and you're doing the best that you can for all the children at your school. That's a lot of weight to carry around. So making sure that we are checking in on our leaders is something that district administrators and superintendents, we have to make sure we are doing that as well. Because you're right. And I have talked parents through lots of things, where I've built those relationships with parents to say, well, you know what? I understand exactly where you're coming from. That's a lot that you're dealing with. But as a mom, I'm going to speak to you now as a mom. This is my experience with my children, you know, and we talk in that frame, and it helps them to understand sometimes where you're coming from with decisions as a leader, because at that moment, sometimes when they're emotionally heated or whatever has happened with them, could be from trauma or some other thing, they're just tunnel vision on what is happening with their child at that time. So being able to speak to them from different lenses definitely helps. So we are definitely going to get out of Principal Kafele's way.
Sure.
He has a very special guest on this week, Dr. Anthony Muhammad, that we are excited to hear. If you need the information that we talked from today, is through our partnership with Pear Institute, the 10 Big Bets. Dr. Gildon from affiliated with Harvard Medical School has partnered with Tammy and I, Create and Educate, to bring training to schools. And also he has a grant where the books are free. So if you reach out to us on our website, fill out the form if you want a free copy of the 10 Big Bets, and you're interested in the training that goes along with the book, as well as the discussion guides, we can get you that information, and we'll get the book out to you. We also just received a big shipment of the resources that we talked about, what your child may need help with, extra help in math, from the company that we work with. So we have those books. Grades pre-K through 5th grade are the books that we have in right now. So if you were interested in one of those math resource books, reach out to us and we will give you the information to purchase those. There is resources for reading, but they are developing actual physical copies of the books for reading.
They are currently available online. Jasmine, I just wanted to make this reference so that as we're getting out of here, you mentioned distance learning, because this book that Sheka just shared with you that Gil created, 10 Big Bets, it really was birthed through the pandemic. So it really honestly speaks a lot to what happened and how those traumatic experiences kind of came about for some students as a result of learning at home. So it is really a good resource to take a look at. And guys, again, thank y'all so much for joining us every week. We're excited to have you and so looking forward to Principal Kafele's session. So we're going to have to come at you at a new time next week.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Next week, we will actually be in Dallas, Texas, where we will be presenters at the AVID National Conference, NatCom. So we will broadcast at a new time. We're going to come on after Principal Kafele because we have 2 back-to-back sessions. So we will come on then and give you some more great information, and we'll let you know how NatCon went. Some of you may even be there, so we hope to see you there, meet you in person.
Great to meet you guys. Thank y'all.
Thank you all.
Join us over with Principal Kafele. Dr. Muhammad is phenomenal. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a great rest of your weekend.